Welcome back to Unleash the Ghouls for another honest review. This time I'm taking a look at Noirvoisie's brand new horror mystery thriller movie Locked In, which has just dropped on Netflix on the 1st of November. The narrative centres around Catherine, who is the mother figure in a very rich English family who has found herself in a coma, otherwise known as locked in syndrome. But as you can imagine, there's multiple layers to uncover as to how she's found herself in this state, and as with all of our honest reviews, I will be delving into key plot details as I recap and review the film. So this is your major spoiler warning, and we've just dropped our first video on our second channel, The Horror Exchange, so if you fancy checking that out, the link's down below in the description. Let's get into it. Straight off the bat, I don't think Locked In was a bad watch. If you're looking for something brand new to watch that holds your attention for 90 minutes, well, you found it. I'd probably recommend for you to place it on your watch list and get round to it whenever you've got a chance. It's not something that's a must watch by any means, but it squeaks by our high standards here at Unleash the Ghouls, meaning it's not completely a waste of time. Firstly, we've got a really strong cast here for the most part, who eke out every last ounce of the script that they've been given. Famke Janssen stars as Catherine, a widowed mother living in Rolling Manor, which used to belong to her deceased husband before he cut her out of the will and left it to his son Jamie, played by Finn Cole. Adding to this complex family is Lena, played by Rose Williams, who is Catherine's adopted daughter. The screenplay mainly jumps between two separate time periods. In the present day, Catherine is lying in a type of vegetated state in a hospital and is being cared by a neuroclinical nurse called Nikki Mackenzie, played by Anna Friel, whose primary objective is to get Catherine's motor neurons firing again and help her try to communicate. And this is really the golden thread that links the narrative together. Why is Catherine in this state, and how did she get there? Well, it all starts with Lena and Jamie, who epitomise how bloody complicated these family relationships are. Jamie is Catherine's stepson, whilst Lena is Catherine's adopted daughter. But the two of them, growing up together in complete isolation from the rest of society, they become very, very close, to the point where their whole existence is dependent on the other, and they decide to get married. It's not incestuous, but I don't think it's completely by the book either. Catherine certainly doesn't think so, and there's all sorts of tensions that arise for many reasons. First of all, they're basically brother and sister, but more importantly, Catherine loses her entitlement to the house to not only Jamie, but now to Lena as well through matrimony. I do really like the opening sections of Locked In. Stylistically, there's some great choices here. We see the family all growing up together way back in the past, where Lena and Jamie are innocent children, and Catherine is a big-time actress. We then get a sudden change from that time period to the present day, where Catherine's face fills up the whole frame, staring into the abyss. It definitely unsettled me a little bit. Additionally, I enjoyed the use of nurse Nikki Mackenzie, who is utilised as a driver for the plot. Once a particular part of Jamie, Catherine and Lena's story is told, we jump back to the present day, where Lena is visiting Catherine in hospital, and Nikki will ask Lena a direct interrogative, which consistently injects momentum into the narrative. We discover that Jamie is not a healthy person. Growing up, it becomes apparent that he has the ability to bring on seizures and draw attention to himself and away from Catherine, who he has grown to loathe. He even decides to do this on his own wedding day just to spite her. This carries well into the marriage of Jamie and Lena, where she becomes effectively his carer rather than his partner. And I've seen this happen in real life as well, where a young couple get together and then one of them becomes very ill and incapable of looking after themselves and becomes fully reliant on the other person. Of course, this has a negative impact on the relationship between the two. A marriage requires intimacy in order to survive and thrive, and this almost certainly falls by the wayside in this scenario of Jamie and Lena. He even has a bell which he rings when he needs the attention of Lena, which reverberates around the grounds. She's basically a slave that waits on him hand and foot. Being a very wealthy household, the family have a private general practitioner called Dr. Robert Lawrence, who visits the manor almost daily to prescribe Jamie with the medication that he needs. But it's not long before he becomes infatuated with Lena, and sexual tension begins to grow between the two. He often rolls up in his brand new Mercedes G-Wagon, which was quite jarring at first for me personally. We spent so much time at the grounds of this 18th century mansion, then suddenly a brand new 4x4 rolls up. But I think the intentions of Dr. Lawrence are very clear from the outset. He drives a big car, which which he took out a loan for, and he's seen in his office browsing a Watches magazine as well. He enjoys the finer things in life and spending so much time at this fantastical manor. The allure of it is clearly drawn him in. There's a clever scene where Lena and Robert are playing tennis together, and Jamie is just sat on the hill watching helplessly as his wife's being pummeled for love by the doctor's backhand, pun intended. All of this foreplay does indeed reach a crescendo where they cement their affair on some dirty hay bales whilst being showered in pathetic fallacy. But as a result of taking a bite from the forbidden fruit, this sets off a series of events which leads to their demise. Claiming that she's in love with Robert, Lena wants to finally leave her unhappy marriage with Jamie, which Robert immediately opposes, because if he's found out to be sleeping with a patient, he'll lose his whole career. Now this is the point where Locked In begins to go a little bit crazy. Clearly both Robert and Lena have a strong lust for each other, to the point where Robert decides the best way to remedy the situation is to row Jamie out in the middle of the lake, capsize the boat and drown him, being careful to make it look like a freak accident. That way Lena is entitled to the house and all of the will, whereas if she divorces Jamie, she would lose everything. It just takes a little bit of a sharp turn south as Robert takes control of the situation very, very quickly. And one thing that isn't explained is why Robert spends so much time at the house. I mean, yeah, you're the family doctor, but he's going around for birthday parties and celebrations of that sort of manner. And it's just the four of them. It's Catherine, her two children, and the family doctor. It's never really explained, and Jamie doesn't seem that unwell to the point where he needs 24 hours medical attention, but we're just forced to accept it. But as the film moves on into its final act, the pacing of the story accelerates and becomes more frenetic. Robert is more forceful with his language and outright asks Lena to sell the house, kick Catherine out, and she'll never have to worry about money again, before gaslighting her and telling Lena that it was her idea to drown Jamie. It's at this point that Robert's true colours are nailed to the mast, and Lena takes off running after his intentions are made crystal clear. All he wants is the family fortune. A second plot point that isn't explained very well is when Lena returns to the house, she looks through the window and sees Catherine and Robert getting intimate. It's thrown in there quite suddenly, and there's zero development as to why this has been happening. But all I can assume is he was seducing Catherine at the same time as he was seducing Lena, but the audience is really left to draw their own conclusions here as to how long this has been going on for, or whether it was just a spur of the moment thing. I did enjoy the direction of the closing segment of the film though, as each scene jumps back and forth in time between Robert's pursuit of Lena and Lena and Robert kidnapping Catherine from the hospital because she knows about them killing Jamie. Continuing the foot chase, both Catherine and Robert are in pursuit of Lena after she freaks out after seeing them getting together. The contrast of Catherine chasing on her horse whilst Robert is tearing up the manor grounds in a G-Wagon is quite stark though. In the present, Robert and Lena take Catherine back to Rowley Manor, where Robert draws up a lethal dose of medication that will send her to sleep and deflect any evidence from being pointing towards them. It's at this moment that nurse Nikki Mackenzie leaves a message on Lena's phone explaining that she managed to use the alphabet board with Catherine moments before she was taken, where she communicated that her accident was caused by being thrown from a horse, crawling into the middle of the road, and then Robert running her over purely because she tried to stop him from killing Lena. I'm guessing that this was supposed to be a twist of sorts, but it was just so blatantly obvious from the moment that I saw Robert roll up in his massive blacked out 4x4 that I just didn't really flinch at all. There's a bit of a struggle after Lena hears this revelation, and then she stabs Robert and he dies. Locked In does manage to feature the blue light ending trope where hundreds of emergency response vehicles surround the house with all three women standing there on the steps of the manor. Now that Nurse Mackenzie knows everything that's happened, it's left with an ambiguous ending as to whether she'll reveal everything to the police or not. But that's the end of Locked In. I'm not sure why IMDb has this down as a horror film. There's very little, if any, horror elements in it. As for the mystery thriller aspect, it's reasonable in these departments. At 90 minutes runtime, Locked In is well worth a watch in my opinion. Yes, it's predictable and some of the narrative is just not explained very well at all, but it doesn't really suffer from any unnecessary cannon fodder to fill in the gaps if it was pushing the 2-hour mark. Also, I thought that the acting was very good. They were convincing, immersive, and for large parts of my viewing experience, I forgot that I was watching a film, which is my personal benchmark for how good an acting performance is. But that's my honest review of 2023's Locked In. Do you agree or disagree with any of my thoughts or opinions? thoughts. Let me know either way down in the comments. I've been your host Hugh from Unleash the Ghouls. Subscribe to the Horror Exchange, and I'll see you next time for another honest review.